Oh, hello. This is Moundmaker, and today I'm back with another Nightreign exploration guide. But first, where have I been? Well, I was on my yearly foray onto another battlefield. And that's that. And now, this is the finale to Series 1 of my exploration guide. Today, I present to you the 51 top enemies in Nightreign based on their XP to effective HP ratio. But wait, what's effective HP? Well, determining how much damage you're going to do at Nightreign is as simple as how much damage your weapon does versus the enemy's damage reduction against that weapon type. So let's look at the weakest enemy in Nightreign, the Crab. The Crab has 28 HP, but it has 10 damage absorption versus physical attacks. This means its effective HP is 31. I then take the Crab's XP and divide it by the effective HP, and I get its ratio. And I did this with every enemy in Nightreign, and I put them on a spreadsheet, and then I got a ranking out of that. Now, a few things before we get into it. Number 1. The entire ranking is based around day 1 only. Some, but not all enemies have more HP on day 2 than day 1. Number 2. I am rusty and basically gathered every clip in this video over the last 2 days, so the clips are for visual representation of the enemies only and not meant to demonstrate effective ways to beat them. Number 3. The entire ranking is based on physical attacks. There's a spreadsheet in the description of this video. It has effective health versus all damage types, and it's sortable. So if you want to see rankings versus other damage types, sort away. The spreadsheet won't give you the nuances like I will in this video though, but if you do find it useful, as well as if you find this video useful, like, comment, subscribe. Number 4. I am absolutely open to any feedback on my math. Mainly, if you think my math is off somewhere, feel free to comment below. I think it's solid, and ChatGPT did as well, but I'm certainly open to dialogue on it. Number 5. I know the DLC is due out later today, and I will eventually do a video on the new enemies and add them to the spreadsheet, but for now, everything covered is just in the base game. Number 6. This list only considers enemies over 4000 XP. I didn't want to corrupt the list with many non-bosses. Putting the XP threshold at 4000 basically eliminates all but a few non-bosses. And finally, I'm going to be brief with each enemy. There's 51 of them. I'm going to try to only talk about each for 15 to 30 seconds and then move on. Oh, and yes, I know it's runes. I call it XP for simplicity's sake. So alright, let me light a torch and hold it to this spreadsheet and read some of these numbers for you. Number 1 is a sentient pest random encounter. As a day 1 encounter, the pest blows away all other enemies by a large margin. There is an asterisk next to its 76.9 ratio though, and that's because it almost always steals at least 1 level from you. But even if it steals a level or 2, it's still going to be number 1 by a large margin. The best part about this being number 1 is that it puts up no fight and is easily the best encounter you can roll on day 1. Number 2 is the Augur random encounter. It shouldn't be a surprise that the top 2 enemies of this list are Night Lord's encounters. This is a dumbed down version of that Night Lord, and shouldn't really give anyone much trouble, and it's worth a 24.6 ratio. But just compare that to the last ratio of 76.9, and you'll see why Sentient Pest dominates this list. Number 3 is the Castle Rooftop version of the Black Blade Kindred. I actually love this fight. Almost all of the rooftop bosses annoy me more than this boss, and yet it has the best 24.0 ratio. That's mostly because it gives a crazy 135,000 XP, which in most cases will get you to level 8 or 9 on day 1 if you manage to take it down on day 1. Number 4 is the malformed stars in Claudio. You get 20,000 XP for this. And yes, it's going to be harder for anyone other than Iron Eye with his ultimate up. But even if you have to fight it in other ways, it still has low health and high XP. Number 5 is Natural Born of the Void with a 20.6 ratio. Add to that this grants a guaranteed revive on death for defeat, and you see why so many people rush this boss and love the Claudio Seed so much. It's kind of an easier fight than a lot of other enemies on this list as well, so thumbs up. Number 6, and the final enemy sporting a 20+ ratio is the Valiant Gargoyle in the Crater. For some reason, I see a lot of people skipping this fight. Maybe that's because it's surrounded by lava, which can sometimes be harder to fight than any enemy. But I think it's a mistake to skip this fight unless you're on a time crunch. I think the entire top 6 are all pretty easy, and it's interesting that they all grant 20+ ratios. But now, we're going to get into some of the more annoying enemies. Number 7 is the Evergoal boss, Ancient Dragon. Keep in mind, this list revolves around day 1, and Evergoal enemies give a huge increase in ratio on day 1, since they have around 50% less HP. I would go as far as to say if you have a key and don't have time to fight an Evergoal enemy, you should still open the jail if you're running by it on day 1, because it will keep the day 1 health if you come back to it on day 2. But yeah, a 19.8 ratio on this one. Number 8 is the Castle Rooftop Royal Carrion Knight. He has a super high 19.5 ratio, but is the most mobile horseback riding boss. And for me, that makes him the most annoying of them. Both this version and the field boss version are enemies I likely only fight if there's nothing else to do, but he's not the enemy I hate the most. That belongs to number 9, the Deathrite Bird on the rooftop. And we're quickly dropping out of the 19s into the 18s for this trash camera angle having, peck you to death while burning every inch that surrounds you with frost, super enhanced auto tracking, having skull-headed bird. Moving on to number 10, and on to yet another annoyance. We have the Draconic Tree Sentinel, who's also on the castle roof. And he's the final 18+ ratio. I like fighting this guy more than the previous 2 enemies, mainly because sometimes his RNG makes him so bad. What mainly matters is how much of a spellcaster he feels like being. The more of a spellcaster he feels like being, the more annoying he is. And now, we're out of the top 10, and we're going to move on to a string of less annoying enemies for a bit. Number 11 is the Mountaintop Ice Dragon. Coming in a little under 18 with 17.9, this is a fairly easy and time efficient fight, as long as you don't die or wipe. If you do, he moves on to an area much further away. But I find that other than his frostbite auto building, he's not much of a threat as long as you can manage that. And number 12 is the Royal Revenant in Claudio. This is the only enemy I did not know existed before I started this list. You most likely want to have an ultimate up or some way to clear all the frogs when you jump down here. But this guy grants 22,500 XP and only has 1,277 effective health. Compare that to the Castle Basement version, which only grants 37,500 XP and has a staggering 6,213 effective health. And now you're probably left scratching your head about the balance of things in this game. Number 13 is the Great Spear-wielding Crucible Knight at the castle. For some reason, this Crucible Knight grants more XP than the ones that have the sword and shield, yet they have the same health. So, if you only have time to take down 1 or 2 of these guys, make sure they're of the spear variety. Number 14 is the Demi-Human Swordmaster of the Mountaintop. Some of you have probably never fought this one, as it's tucked away on the edge of a cliff. But if you do fight it, you get a great 17.0 ratio, and it's a pretty easy fight on top of that. Number 15 is the Ancestor Spirit of the Castle Rooftop. This horny creature can be a pain sometimes if you're melee, especially if it keeps spamming its air prance attack. But if you get decent RNG on its spamming of that, and you get a relatively low level of aggression, it's a pretty easy fight for everyone. Number 16 is the Crucible Knight of the Evergoal. I used to find this fight to be hard, and didn't want this to be what appeared when opening an Evergoal, but I can't honestly remember the last time I died to this guy. He's just one of those enemies that kind of becomes a joke after you die to him a few times. He comes in with a solid 16.3 ratio, and is the last of the 16s. Number 17 is any Mausoleum Knight in Nucleadio using a flaming weapon. Not only do they have a 15.9 ratio, but they also have a decent chance of dropping a purple or better weapon. They're worth killing every single time that you see one. Number 18 is another Evergoal boss, the easy Bloodhound Knight. It has a 15.6 ratio, and keep in mind, you always have the option to take runes instead of the perk choice, but for this list, I assumed you took the perk choice. All Evergoal bosses are higher up the list if you go with the runes. And number 19 is another Evergoal boss. This one, the Godskin Apostle, rocking a 15.1 ratio and a face that needs the hood that covers it. This one is a pretty easy fight and is always a welcome sight when I open an Evergoal. Number 20 is the return of the Black Blade Kindred, but this time of the field boss variety. We're down to a 14.4 ratio, and I find this one can be a little more tricky than the castle version, especially if you're fighting him on uneven terrain, but still not bad for a top tier in the XP department field boss. And moving on to number 21, we have a return of the only thing that makes bell-bearing mom feel like they raised a saint, and that's the Deathrite Bird, and this is the kind that lurks in the Evergoal. It's considerably easier to kill and to tank than the castle one, but this one still is not a fun fight. It still has the same issues, just with less force behind them. Number 22 is the Castle Rooftop Tree Sentinel, which is kind of a joke compared to the Golda version and gives you a lot less heartburn, but also a lot less XP. We're dropping into the 13s with this one, and we're going down to 13.7. Also, with 13.7 is number 23, and that's the Black Knife Assassin in the Castle Basement. Not only does this assassin have a higher ratio than the field boss version, but this one is also a lot easier, since you can sunblock it and trap it in the corner of the small room that it's in. The same reason Bell-Bearing Hunter is a pain to fight down here is just a positive in this case. Number 24 is probably one of the least expected enemies to find on this list, and that's the Large Finger Creeper. It does have a 13.5 ratio, and while it's not the most threatening enemy, I do find it annoying to fight. I can't put my finger on why, but I think it's the tracking always seems off. It moves around a lot and has super poise, but it has good stats, and it's here. That puts us about halfway through this list. So, we're at number 25, and that's the Demi-Human Queen that you find as a field boss. And it has a ratio of 13.1, much more abundant than the Swordmaster counterpart, which can only be found in the mountaintop, but no less easy to kill. It's one of the field bosses almost everyone sees, and knows it's an easy fight, so they take it. Number 26 is the Falling Star Beast, which is located in Crater and has a 12.6 ratio. He is right next to the area where you fight the Valiant Gargoyle. I feel like most people skip him in favor of running to the Magma Worm, but there's no reason to assume you don't have time to hit all three, which is what I suggest, if possible. Number 27 is the Erd Tree Avatar on the castle rooftop, and it comes in with a 12.0 ratio. Not a lot to say about this fight, just another fight that can sometimes be a joke and sometimes be painful, depending on how much spamming of its sparkles it does. Number 28 is the Godskin Noble of the Evergoal. Fighting this guy out in the field versus in a tight space reveals how much more difficulty is added when you have to fight somebody in a tight space like you had to do in the base game. Number 29 is the Black Knife Assassin of the field boss variety, and he comes in with an 11.9 ratio. And like I said, I prefer the basement variety of this enemy. This one can sometimes be hard to hit and track, unless you back him into a wall or have a ranged attack. Number 30 is the Red Wolf of the King Consort, and this is the castle basement version, and it has an 11.8 ratio. This is another RNG fight. Sometimes this is a cakewalk, and sometimes he hops around all over and shoots magic. So, if he doesn't have much to say as far as magic and jumping, it's an easy fight. But if he does, well, it can become an annoying fight. Number 31 is the Knight Assassin, and it has an 11.8 ratio. And with this one, we've reached the Night Invaders. They all grant 18,000 XP, but have different effective HP numbers. Assassin is just Waddler. He's sometimes a pain to kill, and will kill you if you're not careful. But I don't think he's the hardest Night Invader. That one is further down the list. Number 32 is the Royal Carrion Knight of the Field Boss variety. And this one has an 11.7 ratio. I often fight this guy when in Noclidio, not because I want to, but because I have time to kill and the Day 2 circle hasn't closed yet. He gets my throwaway effort. I just don't care for fighting him otherwise, but at least he's not overly tanky, and that's the best thing I can say about him. Number 33 is the Fire Prelate of the Crater, and they have an 11.4 ratio. These enemies are littered throughout the crater. They aren't much as far as effort concerned, but they do have a decent ratio and are worth killing if you have the extra time. Number 34 is the random encounter Libra, and Libra comes in with an 11.3 ratio. I remember the first time I fought this guy, it was without knowing how powerful it was. It killed me faster than a gnat flying over a volcano, but now that I've killed the harder version 10, 20 times, I get to be the volcano. This guy can be quite hard for some, quite easy for others. It probably depends on how good you are at fighting Libra in general, but it does have an 11.3 ratio. Number 35 is the Falling Star Beast that drops with the meteorite, and it grants an 11.3 ratio. Now, it doesn't have as good a ratio as the one in the Crater variety, and also doesn't have pillars that can be used to stun it all around it, but on the flip side of that, it's a lot weaker with attacks and easier to kill on day 1 because of that. Number 36 is the Complete Godskin Duo of the Evergoal variety, and it has an 11.2 ratio. Now, this is obviously a harder fight than each of them separate, and Noble feels more aggressive, but maybe that's just placebo, but you get 60,000 XP for the takedown, and the fight can be made a lot easier if you have an AoE ultimate up and ready. Number 37 is the Elder Lion of the Castle, and it has an 11.1 ratio. I was surprised to see this guy in the top 50. Just didn't think much of him as far as what he provides, but 22,500 XP isn't bad for 2022 effective health. He is surrounded by 2 banished knights, but he also kills them sometime, which is free XP for no effort. Number 38 is once again the Deathrite Bird of the Field Boss variety, and this one gets an 11.1 ratio. I'm not saying anything more about this guy. He is the least likely to get engagement from me, since it gives by far the smallest ratio of return. Number 39 is the Margit event, which grants an 11 ratio upon completion. Also known as Fell Omen, often arrives at times when you're engaged in other battles, so has good timing to be a professional ganker. Another jumpy boss that can sometimes RNG into non-jumpy boss, but can also sometimes act like ADHD is too tame of a word to describe it. One of the major reasons I enjoy this beyond the XP is if you defeat it, you do get your attack power increased by 2% per Site of Grace discovered. Number 40 is the Night Raider, and it has a 10.9 ratio. I do find Raider to be the easiest Night Invader. Like all Night Invaders, he is made a lot harder to invade, but because Raider is pretty easy to defeat, I do consider him one of the best Night Invaders to take down. Number 41 is the Ulcerated Tree Spirit on the castle rooftop, and this one has a 10.9 ratio. I don't know why this enemy and the worm only grant 90,000 runes. Like, worm maybe because it's kind of a joke, but this one can randomly kill you occasionally. But because of its high HP and lowish XP, this is one of the worst rooftop rolls you can get. Number 42 is the Draconic Tree Sentinel of the Field Boss variety, and it has a 10.8 ratio. This is way less powerful than the rooftop version, but also a lot less rewarding. Pick your poison, I guess. Being out in the field versus being on top of the rooftop doesn't make much difference either, since he has spell spam at his disposal either way. Not great, but good enough for the top 51. Number 43 is the Grave Warden Duelist of the Evergoal, and it has a 10.7 ratio. If you're level 1 or 2 and open an Evergoal, I can't think of too many enemies that are better to see than this guy. XP isn't great, but he's a joke in the HP and threat category, and will easily get you somewhere between level 3 and 5 if you take him down at an early level. Number 44 is the Banished Knight of the Red Eye variety at the castle, and it grants a 10.6 ratio. Unlike the more XP granting Crucible Knight at the castle, this version of the Banished Knight does have more HP than the other non-glowing eyes Banished Knight. It's not a ton more, but maybe a few swings of your weapon more. I'm surprised to see so many castle enemies low on this list, but I guess the lure of them is that they are so close together, and some drop perks. Number 45 is the Night Thief, and she has a 10.5 ratio. Fighting this enemy convinced me Duchess would be annoying as hell to fight if this game had any form of PvP. You die in a literal blink to her. Probably should have a ton less HP, but this is From's game, not mine. What do I know about bounce? Anyway, you can stun lock her, and that's the best way to take her down. Number 46 is the aforementioned Magma Worm on the castle rooftop, and it has a 10.4 ratio. Maybe it's just because I've fought this worm a ton of times in Crater, but I find this boss to be a bit of a joke for a rooftop boss. Very easy, non-threatening for the most part. Its biggest issue and its biggest threat is the lava it puts down, and not any particular attack that it has. It has a very lackluster ratio for a rooftop boss, but still good enough to be in the top 51. Number 47 is the Elder Lion Field Boss, and it has a 10.4 ratio. I never really fought this guy much in the past, unless he was close by and a circle was closing. But now, unless I'm on a time crunch, I take the 30 seconds or so it takes to kill him. I hope people get a few enemies out of this list like that they previously hadn't fought, but maybe they begin to fight just because it has a pretty good ratio. Number 48 is the Red Wolf Field Boss, and it has a 10.3 ratio. Unless I'm using a ranger character, this is normally a hard skip for me, especially the one above the demi-human Queen and Crater. I know there's people who say the wolf is easy, and he is, depending on what you're using, but I hate chasing enemies down with melee characters, and this is among the worst when it comes to that. Number 49 is the Crucible Knight. This is the normal one with the sword and shield in the castle, and it rocks a 10.8 ratio. While the Great Spear version is easier to kill because he doesn't have a shield, for some reason he's also much more rewarding. But since you're there taking him out, you might as well take these guys out too if you have the time. Number 50 is the Night Hunter, and it comes in with a 10.0 ratio. The arrows he shoots don't hit too hard, but they do poison, so look out for that. This Night Invader does seem better at evasion than other invaders, but my guess is that's just placebo and that they are programmed the same as far as evasion goes, or maybe with only slight variations. But still, because he tries to keep distance, he can sometimes be a pain to get a hold of, especially with a melee character. In number 51, we have Misbegotten of the Castle Basement, and it has a 10.0 ratio. And I'm not really going to talk about this boss, but you may be wondering why I have 51 on this list instead of just 50. Well, this is the last of the double-digit ratio enemies. It felt wrong to stop at 50 when this one has the same ratio as the one above it. So kind of tied for 50. Nothing else to say about it. And that's the list. And, in case you're wondering and don't pull up the spreadsheet, there's about 80 more enemies that are worth more than 4,000 XP who did not make this list. So, as Macho Man would say, this list is pretty much the cream of the crop. Like I said in the beginning, the spreadsheet is in the description, or at least will be. If you don't see it there, it'll be there shortly after this video is posted, maybe an hour or two. So if you don't see it, that just means that you're an early bird, and I appreciate that from you. But within a few hours, the spreadsheet will be in the description. It's sortable, and you can see top whatever you want against all damage types. Also, I'll be back to making content on a regular basis. Somewhere around a video a week, but not many will be as long as this one. I hope you stick around for more. And that's it. This is Mailmaker. Take care.